Just one thing before we start. We're doing Tariq now, which is a little more complex than Dudra. So I need to some ask you. A lot of you are still feeling very resistant to stand up and debate or clap and debate. And there's a lot of sitting at tables with books in front, which I think is okay if you are familiar with debate and you can hold yourself to the rules. But when you're already not used to that and that habit hasn't been inculcated, if you have someone who's sitting in front of you and you have a book in front of you, instead of debating, it's extremely easy to fall into discussion. And that's something that is happening quite a lot. And I don't think that's helpful. In Dudra, you could still get by. But in Tariq, because the role of the defendant and the role of the challenger is all the more important because you have to now start analyzing lots of parts and lots of little individual features. If you don't stick to the roles, it's easy to fall out of that habit and fall into discussion. So I'm a little curious, why are you, like many of you are feeling reluctant, especially in that area down there. There's like three tables and there's always two people sitting in front of each other with a book. And whenever I come by, I've noticed who's asking and who's answering is never clear. Is there I'm just curious because it's not productive, it's counterproductive, especially for Tariq. So is there a reason why it's happening? Like, is there something that's not clear? Are the debates not clear? Just to understand, yeah. You're not doing this, by the way. So, right, but then my concern is if you're learning the definitions is happening when you're in the debate courtyard, then you are not debating. You're learning the definition. That's one of the concerns, which is the debate time is already limited and it's not going to carry on beyond the next month. When you all go, you'll all be gone. So if the debate hours are used to memorize definitions, then you're not using your time to check whether the definitions are accurate. So that's one thing. I understand that the definitions are longer, yeah.
Yeah, I think we all have the intention to memorize them beforehand, but if it doesn't happen...
Yeah, but then if it doesn't happen and you end up in debate memorizing it, then naturally it's contradictory with being able to debate. That's not something that I've made up, that's just reality. If you're memorizing in debate hour, then your ability to debate in that same hour is not there. There's a saying, I think in Tibetan, they say, a mind that has two objects is never going to get to the meaning in the same way a needle with two heads is never going to be able to stitch anything. So if you're sitting there and you're trying to memorize with a book in front of you and you're going through the definitions, it's not sitting in your head. If it's not going in your head, then you're not being able to debate. And we've only done two definitions. They're long, I agree, but we've done maybe three. So that's one point. And I don't know how productive that's going to be, especially for debate in Tariq, because Tariq is more debate heavy than Dudra. If this becomes a habit, it's counterproductive to you. In a monastery, there'd be a geku who's walking around with a big mala, swinging it over the head, threatening people not to do that. Of course, that's not what we're doing, but there's a reason behind it. The reason behind it is if you're not clear in your role, then you fall into discussion. And to be clear in your role, standing up and sitting is helpful. Because when you're standing, if you just think about it, even physically or even just as in physical action, you know when you're talking to someone and they're sitting like this, you don't feel like talking to them. It's like they've already shut themselves off. Or if you're talking to me and I'm staring there, you don't feel like talking to me. So there is a physical element involved. The second you're debating with someone and you stand, as soon as you kneel down, from our point of view, we know that you're chatting. It's natural. It's very natural. Anyone does that. So when you don't keep to the role, even if it's uncomfortable and you sit down and chat, then it's not a debate anymore. So standing up and sitting down is not necessary, I agree. And it's not always been done. But it's a very helpful learning tool. If you don't do that, you're not clear in what's happening. Now, definitely on a table, sitting face to face with a book in front of each person becomes like a note comparing session. So then you're not debating, unfortunately. And then if your roles are not clear and you cannot demarcate those roles, then that's even harder. If you demarcate those roles by the simple act of standing or sitting, at least you know what you have to do for that period. This is happening quite a lot. And I understand the reluctance and the difficulty with Tariq, but I think you're just compounding it by not even trying to do that other part. So that initial Duja hesitation now has become a Tariq hesitation, and there'll have to be a tool to kind of get out of it. So I'm not saying do it necessarily, you have to absolutely do it, but I can only share with you that in the monastery, when people start debating, irrespective of their age, they also naturally stand up. So there is a physical component, which is what Rinpoche was saying also. There is a physical component that accompanies the mental one, and when you start debating and you start doing everything properly, you do narrow in, your mind does get sharper, it does get clearer, you do get more focused. And if you're sitting and answering, you do feel like you're limited to saying certain things. The second you come to each other's level and you sit down, then you'll end up in a discussion. That is happening. Am I wrong? Okay, good. At least I'm not wrong. So please try. Because if that doesn't happen, your struggles with Tariq will just compound over the next coming weeks, and you'll end up using the debate hours as memorization hours. Yeah?
I'm just curious, does anyone debate with the left hand?
Yeah, there's lefties.
Okay.
Yeah. Lefties. I think you're a lefty, no? Yeah, Bao is a lefty.
Yeah.
Like he comes down like this. Oops. Yeah. But there is a component to it. It's undeniable. It really is. And after you've done it, after you're familiar with it, then you can sit down and say, okay, no, now you give 4 answers. But right now you're trying to create a new habit, and you're falling into an old habit. Between the old habit and the new habit, which one do you think is going to take precedence? What you're familiar with and what is more natural, you're going to gravitate to that, obviously, right? So please try. That picnic section down there needs to change. That's a picnic section. There's 4 people at a table with all the books laid out. That's revision hour. That's not debate hour, okay? So please try and stick to the roles and make them a little bit more solid. It's a role. If you have difficulty sitting on the ground, please take a chair. But if you're going to always be staring each other in the face very politely, it's not going to work very much. Not in the beginning when you're learning, okay? So yesterday, Bao was debating, Venerable was debating. He was standing, and at least his role was clear. So at least demarcate the roles, I'm saying. You know what you have to do, because otherwise you'll slip into dialogue. It's very natural. Yeah. So I'm not a disciplinarian-y type of person. I have a hard time telling you this, but now it's been a week. Actually, from the beginning you've been doing this, right? In Duja, it's still okay because you're still learning and you're kind of bouncing ideas off each other. In Tariq, it's extremely counterproductive. Yeah? The only thing left is now you will have to have some bread, cheese, and you can have a cup of tea, and then you might as well just have a literal picnic. So it's not helpful for debate. It's 1.5 hours, just do that. Yeah? Also in the evening, just do that. Okay? Then the other hours, there's beautiful sun. From 1 to 3:30, there's also tea. Please sit out in the sun and do whatever you want. But in those hours when you're supposed to debate, please do try and debate. Yeah? Otherwise, it's very counterproductive. Okay?
Can you show us the hand gesture again?
I'll show you the hand gesture after class. Oh. Yeah. Also, I'll send a video because I don't have the best hand gesture. I'll send a video so that you can see. You need someone who has a good hand gesture, and there's a whole thing to it. There's a whole dance to it. It's quite nice. So sometimes that's embarrassing. I agree. So if that whole thing is embarrassing, also, can I tell you another example? When you go to debate court, when you go to debate hours, when you're walking in, you can hear claps from like 500 meters away. Our Thosam League debate hour, you kind of have to go right next to the person to hear a clap. Like I walk in at 3:30 sometimes and there's pin drop silence. You can hear the birds and there's like soft whispers. It sounds very idyllic in paradise, but it's not debate, right? You want to get your mind active. So please, let's start hearing it there. Because right now we're not doing debate. Right now we have discussion now. It's not helpful, okay? Yeah. 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 Yeah, so inside, when you're clapping inside, then you can tone down the clapping, but you have freedom outside in the fields to run wild. So in the day, run wild, and in the evening, we're containing ourselves because it's cold. Yeah, that's true. So, but I think there's another classroom up there. So if someone wants to go mad clapping really loudly, you can go up there and clap as much as you want. It's nice, then there's an echo and everything. But it's true. In the monastery, there's those hangars, have you seen? They call the Drepung debate courtyard the helipad. Because it's so huge, it's like a plane can land, a runway. And then they call the monsoon debate shed the hangar for the plane because it's so big. But there's a lot of echo in there. So when there's a lot of echo, then everyone kind of tones it down. But you're already toning it down, so you're very well versed in that, all of you. That practice you have, that's not hard. Okay?
Also, I think that's part of the training, to be able to make that effort to concentrate when there's all this noise.
Yeah, but then it's hard also to hear sometimes. That's also literally hard to hear sometimes. That's true, unfortunately. But in the afternoon, it's not. Yeah, unfortunately, okay? So try and do that. Please, please, please. Because Tariq is difficult. It's not fun otherwise. Yesterday, I got asked, I was like, Tariq's really hard. What's the point? And so just finishing that, right now, we haven't finished the 3 modes. So you don't know what a correct evidence is. You can't test, right? When you know what the 3 modes are, then you can apply it to the syllogisms that are helpful. So when Gen the other day, I think Gen said, when is it going to become relevant? Can we use some Buddhist subjects? He said, it's Atisha's responsibility, and I will keep that responsibility. But it's only possible when you know how to check the validity of a syllogism. So until that happens, you have to kind of go through the motions to understand what attribute of the subject is, what a positive pervasion is, what a negative pervasion is. Until that's clear, I can give you all the most meaningful syllogisms. Suffering and emptiness and selflessness and all of that. But you don't know how to navigate it, so what's the point? Plus that stuff you've already heard a million times. So for about a week, until you have done the 3 modes and you've checked them out, that other part is not helpful. It's almost counterproductive, yeah? So that's why for this week, just try and focus on debating it and getting clarity on each one of these components of the 3 modes individually, okay? So, what's the definition of attribute of the subject and the proof that a pot is a definiendum? Is present in pot, which is the subject of the thesis sought to be known. Yes? What is the definition of the subject of the thesis sought to be known and the proof that pot is a definiendum? That which is held as the base of the reason and having ascertained it to be the reason accord with the way the proof is stated, there is the wish to know whether it is a definiendum or not. Right? Okay. What's the definition of positive pervasion? So this is what your afternoon debates sound like. Now hear yourself. This is what your afternoon debates sound like. Blah 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 blah. It's fine, but we're doing this here, not there. Okay, so that which is ascertained by valid cognition, that in accord with the way the proof has been stated, is present in only the homologous case. Huh? A set of homologous cases owing to its relation to the predicate of the thesis sought to be known. Proven. Correct? Is that right? Huh? Yeah, you can actually do without, but if it has it, then let's just standardize it, yeah? Let's say one more time. What is the definition of the positive pervasion in the proof that sound is impermanent? That which is ascertained by valid cognition, that in accord with the way the proof is stated, is present in only the homologous set of cases, owing to the relation, owing to its relation to the predicate of the thesis sought to be proven. To be proven, doesn't matter, yeah, whatever. Okay? Is that okay? So take product, it follows it is a positive pervasion in the proof that sound is impermanent. Take product, it follows it is ascertained by valid cognition that, in accord with the way the proof has been stated, is present in only the homologous set of cases, whatever, yeah? Yeah? Yes? Yeah? And this is owing to its relation to the predicate of the thesis to be proven, right? So it has to fulfill many things. One, it has to be ascertained to be present in the homologous case. It has to be ascertained to be present in only the homologous case. Yes? It has to be ascertained, firstly, ascertained, to be present in the homologous case, to be present in only the homologous case, and this has to happen owing to its relation to the predicate of the thesis to be proven, right? So to get all of these, the first one that we checked was what the definition of homologous case is. So what is the definition of homologous case in the proof that sound is permanent, for example? That which is not empty of being permanent, that which is not empty of permanent, in accord with the way the thesis has been stated. Because here with the predicate, with the homologous case or the heterogeneous case, you're checking for how you're trying to prove the thesis. Are you trying to prove that the subject is the predicate or that the subject possesses the predicate, right? So based on how you state the thesis, which is what you want to prove, that's what you're checking for homologous case and heterogeneous case, okay? So the definition of heterogeneous case in the proof that sound is impermanent? That which is empty of the predicate, impermanent, in accord with the way the thesis has been stated. So take space. It follows it is the homologous case in the proof that sound is permanent. Except take space. It follows it is not empty of permanent in accord with the way the thesis has been stated in the proof that sound is permanent. Great. Take space. It follows it is a heterogeneous case in the proof that sound is impermanent. It follows it is empty of impermanent in accord with the way the thesis has been stated in the proof that sound is impermanent. Why? Because space is not impermanent. Perfect, right? Is that okay? Yeah? Yeah? Okay? Is this clear? Yes. We can do 5 more. Yeah.
Has and possesses was being and existent? What you said?
So yeah, remember the existent there's ways according with the way it's been stated in terms of being and in terms of having.
Yeah.
So the having is existing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay? Let's do another one. What is the definition of homologous case in the proof that pot is a definiendum? That which is not empty of definiendum in accord with the way the thesis has been stated in the proof that pot is definiendum. So take that which is hot and burning. It follows it is the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum. Take hot and burning. It follows it is the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum because it fulfills the definition of the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum. What? What did you say? Did you mean it like in the new slang lingo, like fire? That's such a good answer. Is that what you meant? Take that which is hot and burning. It follows it fulfills the definition of homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum. Why? What is the definition of the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum? So take that which is hot and burning. It follows it is not empty of definiendum in accord with the way this thesis has been stated in the proof that pot is definiendum. It is not empty, it is empty. It is not empty. Take that which is hot and burning, it follows it is not empty of the predicate definiendum in accord with the way the proof has been stated. The thesis has been stated. Why is it not empty? Why is it empty? Because it's not definiendum, right? Take that which is hot and burning, it follows it is the heterogeneous case in the proof that pot is definiendum. Why? Because it is empty of definiendum. Take that which is hot and burning, it follows it is empty of definiendum. It follows it is not empty of definiendum because it is not contradictory with definiendum. Because it is not contradictory with definiendum. Huh? Take that which is hot and burning. It follows it is not empty of the heterogeneous case in the proof that pot is definiendum. Homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum, sorry. Huh? Follows it is empty or not empty? Huh? It follows it is empty. It follows it is not empty of the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum because it has a common locus. It follows it has a common locus with the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum. Take that which is hot and burning. It follows it has a common locus with the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum because there is something that is both definiendum and hot and burning. Is there something that's both? It follows they are not contradictory. Hot and burning and definiendum. They're not contradictory. It follows it exists in the homologous case. It follows it exists in the homologous case because it is present in the homologous case. It follows it's not present in the homologous case. It follows it is present in the homologous case. Take hot and burning. It follows it is present in the homologous case. Pot is definiendum. In the proof that pot is definiendum. Louder. It follows it is not present in the homologous case. It follows it is present in the homologous case. Except. The wise answer, please. Your why, Ornella, you why? It follows it is present in the homologous case because it has a common locus with the homologous case. It follows there is no common locus with that which is hot and burning and the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum. Huh? Yes, no? It follows it is present in the homologous case. It exists in the homologous case.
Exist. Yeah.
Answer, how am I
Yes,
supposed to
yeah,
debate if you're all
accept.
quiet?
Accept.
Huh?
Accept.
It is present. Because it has a common locus. It follows if it is present if it has a common locus with the homologous case, it doesn't have to be present in the homologous case. Take closing its leaves at night. It follows it is present in trees. Why? Some trees close their leaves at night. If some trees close their leaves at night, it follows it is present in trees. If some hot and burnings are definiendum, it follows it is present in definiendum. Take hot and burning, it follows it is present in definiendum.
Accept.
It follows it exists in definiendum.
Accept.
It follows it is not empty of definiendum. It
Accept.
follows it is the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum. Sa! Huh? Take that which is hot and burning, it follows it is the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum. Because it is not empty of definiendum. Because it is not empty of definiendum. It follows it is not empty of definiendum because it possesses definiendum. It is present in definiendum. Let's go like that. Take being present in definiendum and not being empty of definiendum. It follows they're not contradictory. Take that which is, one sec, take that which closes its leaves at night. It follows it is empty of trees. Why not? It's empty of trees. What is the meaning of, it follows it is not empty of trees? Because it is present in trees. What is the meaning of being empty?
If it is tree, it follows it closes its leaf at night.
No, what is the meaning of being empty of tree?
Oh, if it is
What is the meaning of being empty of tree?
empty of tree or closing its
Tree.
leaves?
I'm saying take closing its leaves at night. It follows it is empty of tree.
No, why?
No, it follows it is not empty of tree. Why?
Oh, no. Yes, it is. It is. It is.
What is the meaning of being empty of tree?
If it is tree, it will close its. It will not necessarily close its leaves at night. Empty of tree.
Take pot. It
thought
follows
I
it
had
is
it.
empty of impermanent.
Why?
Because if it is impermanent, it doesn't have to necessarily be pot. If it is impermanent, it has to necessarily be pot. Take pot. It follows it is empty of impermanent.
Why?
Because if it is impermanent, it is not necessarily pot.
Should I say my thinking or try to stick to the four answers?
What do you think you should do? It's clear what you should do.
Yeah.
The roles have been defined. What should you do? 4 responses.
Yeah.
Take pot. It follows it is empty of impermanent.
Accept.
Take pot. It follows it is not the homologous case in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Accept.
Take sound. It follows it is not the homologous case in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Accept.
Take sound. It follows it is empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Accept.
Take sound being impermanent. It follows it's not the thesis.
The subjects are giving. No, that's the thesis.
It follows it's not the thesis
Why?
because it can't be known.
Why? I mean, reason not established.
Take sound being the predicate. It follows it can be known.
Accept.
Take sound being the predicate. Take sound. It follows it is not empty of the predicate.
Oh, accept.
It follows it is empty of the predicate.
Yes.
It follows it is empty of the predicate.
Sound is empty of sound?
No, predicate impermanent.
Oh.
Take sound. It follows it is empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent.
Sound as the evidence?
No, sound is a subject. Sound and take sound. It follows it is empty of the predicate in the proof that sound is impermanent. The proof is sound is impermanent. That's what you're trying to prove, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in the proof that sound is impermanent, is sound empty of the predicate?
Why?
It follows it is
Empty. I'm lost.
take sound, it follows it is empty of the predicate. Take sound, it follows it is not empty of the predicate. Take sound, it follows it fulfills the definition of homologous case in the proof that sound is impermanent. Take pot, it follows it fulfills the definition of homologous case in the proof that sound is impermanent. Take hot and burning, it follows it fulfills the definition of the homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum. Except, very good. Very good. One sec. What is the definition of homologous case in the proof that pot is definiendum?
That which is not.
That which is not empty of definiendum. Yeah. Take that which is hot and burning. It follows it is not empty of definiendum. It follows it is empty of definiendum. Follows it is not empty of definiendum. Because it is present in the definiendum. Because it is present in definiendum. It follows it is present in definiendum. It follows it is present in definiendum because it has a common locus with the definiendum. Take closing its leaves at night. It follows it is present in trees. Why? Some trees close their leaves at night. First, answer my question. Why? Too long. Why is closing its leaves at night present in trees? which has a function. Right. Okay, fine. Take hot and burning. It follows it is present in definiendum because there is a thing that is hot and burning that does. No, the reasoning is the same. What's the difference?
Is and has.
What is and has?
Has the function of closing its leaves at night. Here you're saying it is a definiendum.
One sec. So there is no tree that closes its leaves at night?
Except.
If it is tree, it follows it doesn't close its leaves at night?
That is closing its leaves.
Yes. Take, if it is a tree, it follows it is not closing its leaves at night.
Why?
It is both is, not one is and one is has,
Why?
because they're both is.
Reason established.
It follows there is a tree that is closing its leaves at night.
Why?
If it is tree, it follows it is not closing its leaves at night. If it is Jason, it follows he is not drinking water. He has the function of drinking water, but he is not drinking water.
Except.
Right? If it is Jason, it follows he is not talking.
Except.
Take Jason, it follows he is a functional thing.
Except.
What function does Jason do?
Jason talks.
Take Jason, it follows he is talking.
Why?
So what function is Jason doing?
Jason has the function of talking.
Right. So prod takes seed, it follows it is not producing sprout.
Except
Yeah. What is the definition of cause of sprout?
that which produces its effect sprout.
So take seed, it follows it produces sprout.
It has the function of
No,
producing
it
sprout.
follows it produces sprout.
Why?
It follows it is not producing sprout. Come on.
Okay, why?
It follows it is producing sprout.
Except.
It follows if it is performing that function, it is performing that function. It follows if it has the ability to perform that function, it is performing that function. Huh? So like the next time someone comes and they're hitting you, you won't be like, you are hitting me. You'll be like, you have hitting me. What do you mean? Okay? So this is it. The present in you've already done with attribute of the subject, right? That which is ascertained by valid cognition to be present in the subject that of the thesis sought to be known. Now you hear back with present in. So empty of the homologous case, what does that mean? That's the debate for homologous case, right? Now, Remy, you asked me yesterday to give you clearer debates. Unfortunately, they're not going to be like the A's and B's, like I said. So this part is then what you just go and reproduce. Okay? You can use your own examples, but in Tariq, the thing here is, so the question is, what is the meaning of being empty or not being empty of the homologous case in accord with the way the thesis is stated? That's what you have to figure out, right? Then the other one which we did yesterday was the other heterogeneous case, right? That's the other two. Those are the two debates over here. Is that okay? So once you do that, then it'll become clear. Yeah? Okay. Anyone? Oh, sure. Yeah.
You said that what says for the definition of the positive privation, the word set of homologous cases isn't, this word set isn't important, but I was wondering what they mean by set. Do they mean the set of like the subject, predicate, and
I'll tell you. Yeah,
reason?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, okay, that's fine. Yeah. So, just so that you know, it says homologous and heterogeneous, right? Homologous means same and heterogeneous means different, right? So why is pot the homologous case in the proof that sound is impermanent? Because it is like you're trying to prove that sound is impermanent, pot is also impermanent in the same way. So it's homologous in being impermanent the way sound is impermanent. Space is not impermanent, it is empty of impermanent, unlike sound is being proven to be impermanent. So homologous and heterogeneous is in relation to the thesis. It is homologous or it is similar or it is like the sound, the subject being proven to be the predicate. That is homologous case.
But if we say take pot, it's impermanent, except. But if we say
No, you're just evaluating whether pot is the homologous case, right?
But isn't that evaluation depending on whether pot is pervaded by impermanent?
No, just if it is the homologous case. You're just checking if it fulfills the definition of homologous case. Not if everything is a pot, does it have to be that? Because then you'll never find anything that is the homologous case definiendum. There's nothing that exists like that. Right? Okay. So homologous case is just checking if something fulfills the definition of homologous case. Just that. Okay? Yeah? Okay. Yeah. Can you just, where's the mic? Oh wait, I haven't even answered, I haven't finished the question. Sorry, right? So when you're saying homologous and heterogeneous, that's what it means. It's homologous to something else, right? Like it has to be in relation to something. See you, Mark. Say bye. Okay? Is that okay? So homologous as in it is similar to the way sound is impermanent, that is also impermanent. Yeah? Heterogeneous is in the way that sound is not impermanent, that also is not impermanent. That's what homologous and heterogeneous. Why you say case or set is because in that there are many things that are homologous with the way sound is impermanent. So that then becomes a set of homologous cases. But you can do without the word set. Why it says set, I suspect the translator has decided to translate it as set, is because homologous case is not just one thing. It includes everything that is impermanent, right? Pot, pillar, form, smell, taste, tactility base, person, consciousness. These are all homologous cases.
So it's just you choose one,
Yeah.
but there's many other ones.
There's many other ones as well. Exactly. That's why it's set generally means that there's many components to it, right? So it just means that a homologous case will have many components to it. That's it. Yeah? Martin?
In the debate with Jason, you said produces and is producing. So it's different, right? When it is produces, it says able to produce, and when it is producing, it is in the moment producing, or?
Take seed, it follows, it is not producing sprout.
In that moment, maybe, yeah. Why not?
Take seed, it follows it is not producing sprout.
Except?
It follows it is the producer of sprout.
Except?
It follows it is a producer that is not producing sprout.
Except?
It follows to be a cause, it doesn't have to be producing that effect
In that moment?
in that moment. This was the debate that we did in cause and effect, but we can do it again because it's important. If it is a cause, it doesn't have to be producing that effect.
Except?
If it is a cause, it follows it has to be a combination of substantial cause and cooperative conditions.
Has to be?
Yeah. If it is a cause, it has to be within a combination of cooperative conditions and substantial cause. This is an important thing. The Buddhist way of looking at it is a little bit different. So this is an important debate from the beginning. So the question is, when something becomes a cause, does it have to come in contact with cooperative conditions or not?
Yeah.
It does. What do the cooperative conditions do? So take a seed without cooperative conditions. It follows it is not a cause of sprout. Like a seed that's on the table here. If I put a seed on this book, it follows it is not a cause of the sprout. Like right now, actually, they're tilling the fields right now, right? The seeds, they haven't put them in yet. They're still sitting at home in their little bags. Take those seeds in the bag. It follows they're producing the harvest.
Later, yeah.
No. In that moment, they're producing the harvest. This is really important. This is what Gen has been trying to do with you every Wednesday, which is saying until you have a effortless wish to attain liberation, you don't have the cause for liberation yet. Remember that thing of you might have merit, but where you steer it depends on your intention. And the duration of your intention is what is determining which direction it goes in. So that's why they say until you have renunciation, which is a terrible translation. What was the other one? Definite? Until you have definite emergence, you don't have the cause for liberation. Until you have bodhicitta, you don't have the cause for Buddhahood. Because when it's a cause for Buddhahood, it has to be producing Buddhahood. Right now, it's producing samsara. So it's not a cause for liberation. So the Buddhist one, I mean, it's not everyone, but the debate over here is when a cause is a substantial cause, if it needs cooperative conditions, then before it had those cooperative conditions, was it a cause? If it was not a cause, then when the cooperative conditions came, what did they do? They started making it produce the effect. So therefore it is producing. That's one debate, okay? I'm not saying you have to agree with it. People say differently. There's different opinions. But the debate over here is if it is a cause, it follows it is producing, because if it is a cause, it has to have cooperative conditions which have to activate its potential. If its potential has been activated, then it is producing. That's the debate. Got it? That's the debate over here. Yeah.
Okay.
Anyways, but he could still say otherwise. You can still say otherwise. It produces, it is not producing. You can still say that. That's okay. Yeah. Yeah? Okay. Yeah.
A small question for this evening.
Rinpoche and Gen.
Both.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
As far as I know. Yeah. Okay. Now, homologous case done. Now, example. Homologous case done in the sense that's the info. These are the debates. There's two debates. Yeah? What? No. We haven't even touched the negative pervasion. We're still doing we haven't even done the positive pervasion in all its detail. We only did the definition of homologous case. Example is a necessary component of the positive pervasion. Okay? So, yeah. Okay. So, remember how we said to understand positive pervasions and negative pervasions, you need to know what the homologous case is, what the heterogeneous case is, and then you need to know what a example is. So, we have homologous example, heterogeneous example. Okay? Now, don't write the definition of a homologous example because it's not fun. The definition of homologous example is that which is held to be a homologous example. The definition of heterogeneous example is that which is held to be a heterogeneous example. But there is a definition of correct homologous example and correct heterogeneous example. But first I want to explain to you what the point here is. The idea here is if you want to prove that sound is impermanent with the sign product, right? With the evidence product, you have to prove one, that product is present, is merely established to be present in sound, and sound has to be the subject of the thesis sought to be known. So one, it has to be merely ascertained to be present, and sound has to be the subject of the thesis sought to be known, right? If you want to infer that sound is impermanent with the evidence product. But that's not enough. You also have to be certain that product is existent only in the homologous case in the proof that sound is impermanent. Yeah, it is present in only the homologous case, which means that it is only existent in impermanent. It is not present in permanent. Product is present only in impermanent, not in permanent. Yeah? And then it says, does it say owing to? Yeah? Owing to its relation to the predicate in the the predicate of the thesis to be proven, right? So the predicate of the thesis to be proven is impermanent. So owing to the fact that product is related to impermanent, you prove that it is existing only in the homologous case impermanent, right? Implicit in this is the negative pervasion, which we'll do later, which is it is absent in the heterogeneous case, right? But to show that if something is produced, it can exist only in impermanent, you can't understand it on an abstraction. Yeah? and Anastasia, I'm going to come back to what you said because this is the one where you were asking in the beginning. It's extremely important, which is you have to understand it on something that is clear to you. So you have to have an example which helps you understand that if something is produced, it has to be impermanent. Okay? So a homologous example is just the example that's helping you understand why product or why being produced is present only in impermanent. Yeah? So whatever you are using to try and understand that if something is produced, it can exist only in impermanent, or if it is produced, it has to be impermanent. Whatever the opponent or the challenger is using to that effect is a homologous example. It's homologous because it is going to be similar in the way that you will later understand sound being impermanent because it is produced. So that's what the homologous example does. The heterogeneous example is the opposite. The heterogeneous example is what's going to help you understand that produced cannot exist in permanent. So the heterogeneous example has to help you understand the definition of relation. What is the definition of relation? If impermanent is absent, it necessarily entails the absence of produced. So the heterogeneous example is whatever you can use to gain certainty about the opposite. So if it is permanent, it cannot be produced. Now you remember the proof statements? We had the proof statements proving the homologous case and proof statements with the heterogeneous case. The proof statement of the homologous case, now you will appreciate more. Whatever is produced is pervaded by being impermanent. Yes? For example, a pot. Now you get it? Do you remember this? The proof statement, just pull it out. Do you remember proof statements? We did it. Just briefly, right? But yeah, just if you look at it now, you'll appreciate what this homologous example is. The proof statement was on page 304, right? Okay. Where is it? See, on page 306, there are two types of correct proof statements. A correct proof statement expressed in terms of a homologous case. See, now it's coming back. Now this will be more meaningful. In terms of a homologous case, and correct proof statements in terms of you PDF people. Anyways, it doesn't even help if you tell each other what PDF page number it is. Huh? Have you found it? You got it? Page 306? Yeah. Okay. See the last paragraph. There are two types of correct proof statement. Has everyone got it? Yeah? Okay. A correct proof statement expressed in terms of a homologous case and a correct proof statement expressed in terms of a heterogeneous case, correct? Now if you come down, yeah, you see an example is the proof statement. You see that? If something is produced, it is pervaded by being impermanent. An example is a pot. Sound is also produced. So what is the homologous example here? Pot. It's helping you illustrate what? If something is produced, it has to be impermanent. And then later you understand it on the subject sound. Right? Is that okay? Yeah? Then, if you look ahead, homologous case is right at the end on the last line. An example is a proof statement such as, if something is permanent, it is pervaded by being unproduced. An example is space. That's your heterogeneous example. Okay? So you have to understand both to get a positive pervasion and a negative pervasion. That's why the heterogeneous examples and homologous examples are important. Okay? Now, why in the definition of homologous example do you say that which is held to be a homologous example is just that someone might not use the correct example but might use it to try and prove the positive pervasion. Someone might not use the correct example but try and use it to prove the negative pervasion. So if it is held to be a homologous example, it is a homologous example. Basically, whatever you're trying to use to prove that if it is the reason, it must be the predicate. And whatever you use to try and prove if it is not the predicate, it follows it is not the reason, is a heterogeneous example. They don't have to be correct. Okay? That's why the definitions are rather simplistic. Now, the definition of a correct homologous example is, yeah? Now, this is your addendum. So, like we said, you're still doing the mechanics of this. This is like when you're learning like very basic carpentry and you can't make a nice thing yet. You know, you're still learning. Like, oh, when you're doing pottery, have any of you done pottery? You suck in the beginning, don't you? Like, it's the most embarrassing thing when people watch you because everything just flops around everywhere and it just breaks and then nothing happens. So you sit there and you do that for hours and hours and hours, and then you do and suddenly this beautiful pot comes up. So right now, this is what you all look like. You're like struggling with all of these things and you can't turn the wheel and your coordination is all off. Then there will be a day when you will think 3 modes and it'll come. But if you want the beauty to happen now, it's like going to learn pottery and just try and do this. You come up with you can make an ashtray maybe. That's just about what you can make, right? So that's what you're doing. That's why we're not having fun, right? The meanings are not relevant yet. Yeah, yet. I'm saying yet. Because there are some people who get really inspired by the precision of these rules. Yeah, good. Oftentimes, you want to hear, this is very generalized, German people really like Tariq. I swear. Because it's very logically minded. Even Indians love Tariq. Yeah, it's very well structured. And there you have Sabrina, who happens to speak German as a second language, who, Dudra and Lorik, she was like, Tariq suddenly was very inspired. But this stuff, I didn't like this stuff. I was like, this is really boring. But later, I found it very helpful because it's very clear and it fits very well, right? Yeah, so for those of you who don't like it, the beauty will come later. But you have to learn the basics so that you can at least navigate the syllogisms later on, okay? So, can you just write down the definition of correct homologous example? Case? No, example. The example is what you are using to illustrate that the reason is present in only the homologous case. The homologous case is, the set of homologous cases. That's what you're trying to prove. That produced exists only in the homologous case impermanent. To illustrate this, you need an example. It has to tie down to something, right? You can't just fantasize about it or intellectualize it. Yeah?
Why are we not using flawless?
I don't know. Flawless homologous example, correct homologous example. Generally, flawless is used with the subject. So you know where our text has subject of the thesis sought to be proven? Some texts translate that as flawless subject.
Okay, I thought there was a distinction.
It's just,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
You can use flawless, correct. It just means it has to be perfect, literally, yeah? Okay?
The example is what you are using.
The example is whatever will be used by the challenger to try and illustrate the the positive pervasion to the defendant. So when we did it with the proof statement that is proving the homologous case, it was pot, right? This is just an example because then if you look at the definition, you'll understand the necessity of it. So can we just do the definition one sec, yeah? Yeah? I translated it, yeah. Do any of you have it written down? The one that we had done? Yeah, because I think I'd done a fair job of that translation back then. You have it? No, Kelsey has. You have it here? Can you just read it out, please? Correct? Yeah, so now it's homologous. Yeah, that's not that one. That's one.
That which is held as a correct concordant example and possesses the
No,
definition.
the other one, the other one.
Okay, the meaning of possessing the definition.
No, the other one. There was a longer one. Do you remember that one?
This is all I have.
Okay, then let me do it. Let me do it now. It's fine. Thank you. Okay, let's do this. So, yeah, can you read that which is held and possessed? No, it's fine. I got it. That which is held to be a concordant, homologous example. Yeah. Yes. Okay. That is able to illustrate. Yes. Okay, that is able to illustrate the pervasion on the basis of debate. Yeah? On the basis of debate, which is the subject, right? Illustrate, yeah. Illustrate the pervasion on the basis of debate. Yeah? Okay, is that okay? By being able to show how it is analogous on the subject. Show how it is analogous on the subject. Or on the basis of debate, sorry. At the end, basis of debate both times. On the basis of debate. So I'll say it again. That which is held to be the homologous example that is able to illustrate the pervasion on the basis of debate by showing, by being able to show the pervasion on the basis of debate. No, from the beginning. You've read the two parts separately. What is it? That which is held to be the homologous example, the pervasion on the basis of debate, then by how it is analogous on the basis of debate. So there's two parts. No, on the subject I changed it, on the basis of debate. Yeah? Yeah. Yeah, by being able to do that by showing how it is analogous. So it's not really two parts, it's a continuing thing. Yeah. So by being able to show how it is analogous on the basis of debate. Yes, exactly. So what this means is it has to be something where you can first understand the pervasion. Okay? So that means it has for the defendant to understand the pervasion on the correct concordant example. This is the definition of correct homologous example, right? For the defendant, a correct homologous example has to be somewhere, something where they can understand the pervasion easily. Then, having understood the pervasion on the example, they can understand it on the subject. How does it help them understand it on the subject? By showing how it's analogous, by showing how it's the same. So by showing the reasoning is the same. Now, you know how the Buddha gives in those examples of lightning, bubbles? We've said this many times. A bubble is a perfect, correct homologous example to understand that whatever is produced is impermanent. Even the last moment of a flame is used as an example. Because on a bubble, you see the bubble disintegrate. It comes up for a bit and it dies. You see that it comes up because water is being thrashed around. So you see a bubble come up. And you understand that because the bubble came to exist and then it died because it was just temporarily arisen from being thrashed around, the reason of it being produced helps you understand that it had to disintegrate. Because on the bubble you can see both directly. Or on the flame. The last moment of a flame lasted only one moment because there was just that much oil left. Or just that much of a wick left. These are those examples, right? So when you understand that on the example, you understand the pervasion on the example first. Then the understanding of the pervasion, when you look at the subject, it is able to illustrate it on the subject as well. So now not only does a challenger have to know what the defendant is thinking, how they're thinking, what they're able to understand. They also have to be able to find a correct homologous example to make sure that it's easier for them to understand the pervasion before they understand the thesis. There's a lot that's going on in an inference. So if we are debating and I say, and I'm trying to prove that I am the nature of suffering because I am produced by karma and afflictions, for you to understand that if it is produced by karma and afflictions, it has to have the nature of suffering, I have to know what you're thinking about in terms of nature of suffering means, in terms of produced by karma and affliction means, what you mean by karma, what you mean by klesha. I have to make sure that all of these things are clear. So we're speaking the same language, first step. Then I can't say, for example, my mother, or for example, that person in the hospital that I saw, or for example, something or the other. I have to be able to give an example for you that is going to make it clear for you that if it is the effect of karma and klesha, it has to have the nature of suffering. So not only do I have to know everything, I have to be able to transmit everything to you clearly in terms of meaning. I have to know what you're thinking. I have to be able to find an example that works for you. And if I'm talking to you, that example might work for you. For you, it might be different. For you, it might be different. For you, it might be different. When I find an example that works for you, then it becomes a correct homologous example. Before that, it doesn't. So for some people, it's easier to know that sound is impermanent. Pots, on the other hand, don't seem to be impermanent. They seem pretty solid. So whether pot is an example that is a correct homologous example is also to be considered. It's used over here, right? But basically a correct homologous example can be anything that is enabling the defendant to understand the pervasion and then extend that reasoning to the subject. So there's a lot going on, right? Now the definition of correct heterogeneous example is, yeah? So it's the same as before. That which is held as a heterogeneous example, yeah? Now here, oh, can you make an addendum to the addendum? The first one. Yes. What, just read it out to me. That which is held. One second. Before that is able to illustrate, I missed a bit. It says that after having ascertained the pervasion between the reason and the predicate on it, and then the rest carries on. Sorry. That which is held as a correct, that which is held as a, to be a homologous example, that having ascertained it to be, that having ascertained the basis for the pervasion between the reason and the predicate. The pervasion between the reason and the predicate, and then the rest continues. Sorry, yeah, that was a thing. Okay? The basis of the pervasion between the reason and the predicate is able to illustrate the pervasion on the basis of debate by being able to show how it is analogous on the basis of debate. It's a very long definition. Yeah? That's what the definition. Okay. Okay? Yeah. So it has to be ascertained to be the basis for realizing the pervasion. That's all it's saying first, yeah? And then you extend it to the subject, yeah. So the opposite one will be, the heterogeneous example will be, that which is held to be the heterogeneous example, that is ascertained to be the basis for realizing the pervasion. That which is, just read it to me, Jason, how have you written it? The homologous one, just one sec. Yeah, so that which is held to be the heterogeneous example, that having ascertained it to be the basis of the pervasion between, now this is long, between the reverse of the predicate and the reverse of the reason. Heterogeneous, yeah. That which is ascertained, that which is held to be a heterogeneous example, that having ascertained it to be the base of the pervasion between the reverse of the predicate and the reverse of the reason, and then it carries on, is able, it's the same as the before, yeah? Reverse of the predicate and reverse of the reason. I know. And then from then on it's the same. Is able to illustrate the pervasion on the basis of debate by having shown how it is. Being able to show it, yeah. Yes. Okay? So why are you saying reverse of the reason, reverse of the predicate and reverse of the reason? Because to show the positive pervasion, you have to show that if it is produced, it has to be impermanent. The negative pervasion is if it is not impermanent, it is not produced. So reverse of the predicate and reverse of the reason. Yeah? That's it. So actually the rest is just a lot, it's very wordy, but it's just to show that a lot of things have to be met. So first it has to be somewhere where you can understand the pervasion. Then it has to be able to illustrate the pervasion on the basis of debate by showing how it is analogous on the basis of debate. It has to do three things for it to be a correct concordant example. Is that okay? Yeah? Yeah. Jason, just read it. Jason's got it clearly written down. Jason, just take the mic.
That which is held to be a heterogeneous example, that having ascertained it to be the basis of the pervasion of the reverse of the predicate and
Between the reverse of the predicate and the reverse of the reason.
that which is held to be a heterogeneous example, that having ascertained it to be the basis of the pervasion between the reverse of the predicate and the reverse of the reason, is able to illustrate the pervasion on the basis of debate by being able to show how it is analogous on the basis of debate.
Yeah. Will it be still? It will be. It will be. It will. It will. You'll see why. You'll see why. You'll see why. It's actually very beautiful. It's a good question. Actually, interesting. Why are you having this doubt? Tell me. What? There's no subject in the reverse. It's reverse of predicate and reverse of reason. Yeah. No, analogous, the pervasion is analogously understood on the subject. First you have to understand it on the heterogeneous example. Right? What pervasion? Between the reverse of the predicate and the reverse of the reason. First you understand that pervasion on the heterogeneous example. Then you use that pervasion, which is, if it is impermanent, it follows it is not produced, on the heterogeneous example and extend it to the subject. So you're showing how it is analogous. Yeah? Because if something is not impermanent, it follows it is not produced. Now when you understand this pervasion on the subject, you understand that sound has to be impermanent. Yeah? Are you saying that there is no such pervasion on the subject? Is that why you have this doubt? On the subject. Yes. So what is the pervasion that you're illustrating? That's not the pervasion, no. Sound is impermanent is the thesis. So what's the pervasion? How can impermanent be the pervasion? Pervasion has two elements, no? No, read the definition. Between the pervasion between what? No, and the reverse of the reason. Maybe you haven't finished the whole definition. Right. So what is the pervasion? Other way. Reverse
No,
of the
if it is-
predicate and
if it is
reverse
im-
of the reason.
If it is impermanent, it is not produced.
If it is,
Impermanent.
if it is,
Not permanent.
how is that the
Impermanent.
reverse?
If it is impermanent, it is not produced.
Is there such a pervasion?
If it is not impermanent, it is not produced.
You're not saying it correctly. Earlier you said, if it is impermanent, it is not produced. It is, if it is not impermanent, it follows it is not produced.
If it is not impermanent, it is
That,
not produced.
that's the
right?
pervasion.
Right.
You first understand the pervasion on the heterogeneous example,
Mm-hmm.
and then you use the same reasoning on the heterogeneous example to understand it analogously on the subject. Now, is your doubt that such a pervasion doesn't exist on the subject? If that's your doubt, then it's something that is important to cite, to kind of flag.
My understanding of analogous is related to.
Same. So when you understand this pervasion in relation to the heterogeneous example, you have to relate the same reasoning to the subject.
Correct?
Is that not okay for you?
Yeah, that is precisely not okay for me.
What is not okay about it?
I can't articulate it well, but what to my mind, what I'm saying is if it is reverse of the predicate and the reverse of the reason in terms of the pervasion,
Yes.
then that certainly might not also be related to it.
Might not be related to what?
To the illustration which we are saying. I mean, in terms of the subject, the debate.
Take sound, it is impermanent because it is produced. Use it here. Is space a heterogeneous? So do it like this. Take space, it follows it as a heterogeneous example, a correct heterogeneous example in the proof that sound is impermanent with the evidence produced. It follows it fulfills the definition of correct heterogeneous example in the proof that sound is impermanent with the evidence produced. It follows it is that which is held as a heterogeneous example, which is the base for realizing the pervasion between reverse of impermanent and reverse of produced, that is then able to illustrate it on sound by showing how it is analogous on sound. So what part is difficult now with the definition? So then that's an interesting question. It depends on you. It's really going to depend on a person. Some people will go through it through the positive pervasion, and some people will go through the negative pervasion. Now, both examples have to be considered by both people. But what you will use in this example to get certainty on sound is case specific. So what we'll do when we do positive pervasion and negative pervasion is you see that one is implicit. When you understand one, the other one is implicit. Okay? So what do you have to do? You don't have to start with homologous and go to heterogeneous. You don't have to start with heterogeneous or go to homologous. It might be either one. It'll depend on how you started. But when it'll become a correct evidence for you, when it'll become the three modes for you, you will have gone through the homologous example. You will have gone through the heterogeneous example. Okay, can I just show you now how complex this is? Just so that you appreciate how complex this is, okay? This is just the explanation. Then the debate will come later. Okay, yeah, I'll go slowly, okay? If you want to prove that sound is impermanent and you want to use the sign produced, before you are in a position to think production has to guarantee impermanence to prove that sound is impermanent, these are the things you have to have done. One, you have to have already been put in a position where you are not convinced that sound is permanent. That has to help, that's the groundwork, that's basic. That sound is not permanent. You have to drop that conviction that sound is permanent, which is illustrated by sound has to become a subject of the thesis sought to be known. You want to now at least generate the wish to want to know that sound is impermanent. Okay? Then you have to, so you have the wish to know that sound is impermanent. Now you have to be given evidence for it. That evidence has to become valid for you. Before that evidence can become valid for you, you have to do the following things. One, you have to know that if something is produced, it has to be impermanent. because you have thought of an example that has made you understand that whatever is produced has to be impermanent. So you already had to have thought about that before. To be sure of this and not be left with any possible doubt, you have to, on the other hand, work on the opposite and be sure of that by saying, this is necessarily so, because if something is permanent, it cannot be produced. And you have to have thought of that as an example. So through your examples, you have to know that whatever is produced has to be impermanent, because permanence doesn't allow for production. You've done this in two separate moments. Then you have to be able to understand that the predicate and the opposite of the predicate are in direct contradiction. You have to remember this. When all of this is vivid and fresh in your mind, it's still not correct evidence. Because for it to become correct evidence, your conviction with, if it is produced, it has to be impermanent. Because if it is permanent, it is not produced. You have to familiarize yourself with it to such a degree that thinking of one brings the meaning of the other spontaneously. Because when both of these two convictions or these realizations merge, they become potent in eliminating two sides of the doubt. When all of these things come together, then you think sound is impermanent, and then you think produced, and the thought production will make you realize it is an attribute of sound, which means it is, in another way of saying it, sound is pervaded by the substance production. You will understand that production must necessitate disintegration, because if production was there, it could not be permanent. So production becomes pregnant with a lot of meaning. Production becomes an attribute of sound. It becomes a basis where there can be no permanence, and it becomes a basis which has to be impermanent. And then when you see sound is this, in the next instant you will say, oh, sound has to be impermanent. So until all of this is happening in one conscious event, you cannot have inference. Now for this to happen, you have to have identified what is a good example for you, what is helping you. That's what the Buddha gave hundreds. He didn't just say bubble. He said bubble, lightning. He said all these things, right? The different ones will work for different people. For emptiness, illusion, mirage, reflection, harmony, hundreds, right? Those are all examples. Some will work, some won't work. You find the one that works, you gain certainty with this pervasion. You find the one that works in the opposite direction, you gain certainty with the counter pervasion. You think of both of them, they merge in one understanding, then you think of the inference. In that moment, for 1 second, it is correct inference. Just for that one instant. And in the next instant, you have inference. There's no gap in between those two. That's how it's explained. So it's not just what we're sitting and doing here. Definitely not what you're doing during your picnics in the afternoon. Because you're not even running through syllogisms. Do you understand why syllogisms are so important? So when the Buddha said everything that is conditioned is impermanent, now think of what needs to go in. You need to at least first be sure that things are not permanent. Not sure, you have to have at least a doubt to say, wait a minute, is it really permanent? Which means everything you're perceiving, you're like, maybe it's not the way I see things. That's your first. If that's not happened, forget it. Inference is not happening. There's no room for it. Denied. Right? When you are wondering whether what you perceive is valid or not, then you need to kind of like dig out the evidence to prove that it's not like that. For some people, production will work. For some people, compounded will work. For some people, functional thing will work. For some people, something else will work. Conditioned will work. You don't know, right? You need to find the right reason to help you get that evidence. But when you've got the reason is not sufficient. You have to prove that reason necessitates the predicate. And for that to be certain, you have to prove that if it is the way it appears to you, it cannot be conditioned, it cannot be produced, it cannot be blah, blah, blah. You have to understand it on an example, because otherwise it's purely theoretical. You have to do this and gain familiarity with it to a point when someone will come, you will be fortunate, we will be fortunate to have someone who has this realization, pops up and says, hey, it's like this. And then you have inference. Until then, it's faith. And that person has to have that realization. Yeah. Faith. Until then, you believe what the Buddha said. So right now when we say things are impermanent, chances are it's just probably. Yeah? There's a lot that has to happen in a correct reason. Okay? So now, do you see why we have to insist on these three modes to a good degree before you can even start excavating the meaning of the teachings? Because ironically, we feel that sometimes without reasoning you can get it, but the irony of the whole thing is all the texts are only full of reasons. It's expected that you know how to think and navigate all of this stuff. Yeah? It's like if you've written a text in English, you expect the reader to know English before they can understand the text. So when you don't know how to reason and you're reading a text, you're generally drawing about 20-30% max of what is being said. It's unfortunately like that because you don't know how to make sense of it. Yeah, it's like reading a Brian Greene introduction to quantum physics and feel like you're an expert in the field after having finished it. That's literally what you can draw out of it. So the three modes are extremely important. We haven't even done the second yet. This is still the building blocks for the second, okay? So because today you don't have any debate in the afternoon, tomorrow we'll finish the positive pervasion and then I'll give you all the debates for that, okay? Yeah. Yeah.
A small question. In the heterogeneous example, do we have to use impermanent or to say not permanent?
Not permanent.
Good.
No. Not impermanent. The predicate is impermanent, so not
Yeah,
impermanent.
But we say not and
We say not that, yeah.
and
yeah.
not the other thing.
Yeah.
Good.
Okay. Just take the mic,
So this is in terms of a correct heterogeneous example, it needs to be part of a heterogeneous case.
Yes, the example has to belong to the heterogeneous
So if
case.
the heterogeneous case definition is that which is empty of the predicate,
Yes.
in the correct example, we are still trying to find the pervasion
Yes,
in terms of reverse of the predicate and reverse,
and reverse
of
of the reason, yes.
And it is still analogous,
It is still?
analogous or related to.
Yeah. So, do me a favor. I think I have a feeling I might know what you're thinking. But I want you to clarify the way you're asking because you're just saying, is it still analogous? You're not telling me analogous with what? You're not telling me why you think it's not analogous. So, is it still
I'll
analogous?
write it down.
So just try and make sense of it because that doubt is an important doubt if it is what I think you're asking. Because there is a doubt over here that's very relevant. But the debate on that comes in when you're analyzing the process of how you're getting closer to realizing the inference, to generating inference, yeah? So, but at least get the doubt clear because right
Yeah,
now,
I'll
what
write
is analogous with is not very clear how you're asking it, no?
Sure. Okay.
Okay?